La Belle Couronne, the five-star restaurant, nestled in the heart of the city's financial district, was packed to the brim that night. The delicate chime of silver cutlery against crystal glasses, the soft hum of a grand piano in the corner, and candlelight flickering across pristine white tablecloths, gave the room an air of polished luxury. Waiters glided through the aisles with rehearsed precision, their movements choreographed like a ballet. The air smelled of expensive wine, truffle sauce, and the quiet arrogance of the wealthy patrons, people who believed a single raised eyebrow could bend the world to their will. At the center of the grand hall stood the VIP table, the only one with high-backed velvet chairs, set apart by a low brass railing, as if to remind everyone else that the people seated there belonged to a different class entirely. A man in his 50s sat at the head of the table, leaning back comfortably, legs crossed, a perfectly folded napkin draped over his lap. His neatly trimmed silver hair, tailored Italian gray suit, and Patek Philippe watch glinted under the warm light. But it was his smirk, that sharp, dismissive smirk, that made anyone meeting his gaze feel an inch shorter. His name was Morton Kessler, billionaire investor, founder of a cross-state real estate fund, and a strategic stakeholder in the La Belle chain. Though not officially its owner, his influence was enough to make any manager's hands tremble, adjusting their cuffs whenever he walked in. Seated with him were four guests: two Japanese business partners, a PR assistant, and a senior executive laughing too hard at jokes he barely understood. Then Naomi Carter approached. She was in her late 30s, on her evening shift. Her crisp white shirt was buttoned to the collar, her gray apron spotless, black shoes polished to a shine. Her dark brown skin glowed under the soft lights, her coiled hair tied neatly back, her face free of makeup but striking in its calm composure, the kind of calm that comes from years of enduring scrutiny until it no longer stings. Her left hand steadied the silver tray while her right carefully positioned the plate as she stepped toward the VVIP table. "Sir," she said politely, her voice measured and clear. "Your Wagyu steak with green peppercorn sauce, cooked medium rare as requested. Please enjoy your meal." Morton didn't look at her. He merely flicked his chin toward the plate, then frowned. Not hot enough. Naomi paused for half a second. She knew the steak was perfectly timed, medium rare, fresh from the kitchen, less than a minute ago. But she kept her tone even. "Of course, sir, I'll inform the kitchen to—" "No," Morton cut her off, this time locking eyes with her. His voice sharpened, slicing through the ambient chatter. "What I want to know is why they let people like you serve in a place like this." Wait a second. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps us. The words hit the room like the crack of a crystal glass, shattering not by sound, but by the weight of what followed. "Someone like you," he went on, louder now, with no effort to hide the disgust, "knows nothing about fine dining. Who thought it was a good idea to let a black maid touch my food?" A chuckle escaped from a nearby table. A middle-aged man murmured just loud enough for others to hear, probably straight from the slums. A woman in a purple evening gown covered her smile behind manicured fingers, her gaze sweeping over Naomi like she was looking at a stain on a wedding dress. Naomi stood still. Her face betrayed nothing, but her fingers tightened slightly around the tray. She bowed her head. "I apologize if I displeased you, sir. I'll have another server assist you right away." Morton let out a laugh, this time sharp, mocking, meant to cut. "Apologize? That's all you people ever do? Do you know how much some of us pay to sit here? And I have to watch this walk back and forth in front of me." Naomi exhaled softly, keeping her voice level. "I understand, sir. I'll step back." But Morton suddenly swiped his arm. Crash! The crystal glass smashed against the table, sending a splash of red wine across the pristine tablecloth like a bloodstain that would never wash out. Hit the manager. His eyes bulged, his face red with fury. "Fire her, right now. If you don't, I swear I'll see this place shut down. Do you believe me?" The floor manager, a thin, nervous man with disheveled hair, rushed over, bowing repeatedly. "Mr. Kessler, Please accept our deepest apologies. I'll take care of this immediately. Naomi stared at him, unblinking. No one met her eyes. The manager turned to her, his voice low and pleading. Please, Naomi, come with me. The whispers rose behind them. Some guests turned fully in their chairs to watch. A few servers stepped back as if afraid her bad luck might rub off on them. Naomi turned and followed the manager toward the stainless steel kitchen doors. But just before she stepped through, she glanced back at the room, at the designer dresses, the polished shoes, the carefully painted faces, the smirks of superiority and the flashes of pity. And she said, her tone soft, clear, but loud enough to be heard, "You'll regret this." For a brief second, silence hung in the air. Then someone laughed. "Oh, please. Sounds like something out of a bad TV drama." Naomi disappeared behind the kitchen doors, and no one knew. That hadn't been a promise. It was a warning. The stainless steel door swung shut behind Naomi with a heavy thud. The muffled sounds of the dining hall leaked through the cracks. Still laughter, still clinking cutlery, still Morton Kessler's booming voice lecturing on class and proper dining standards. Inside the kitchen, no one spoke to Naomi. Some turned their backs, pretending to be absorbed in chopping vegetables, polishing plates, or checking oven temperatures. The air reeked of seared chicken liver, truffle butter, and a vague, collective fear. Naomi stood alone by the white teal wall, phone in hand, eyes fixed on the screen, not typing, not scrolling, just waiting as though expecting a signal. Whispers rippled through the room, soft and nervous, like the first patter of rain. She messed with the wrong guy. Bad luck. That's Morton Kessler. Why didn't management warn her to stay away from his table? Maybe they wanted this to happen. Sent her on purpose, knowing he'd snap. A blonde waitress leaned toward her coworker, voice hushed. She asked about Brenda before. Remember? The one fired last month. Because of him, right? Maybe she's trying to get revenge for Brenda? Typical stupid stunt from one of them. A young line cook bit his lip, turned away, saying nothing. Naomi didn't respond. Maybe she didn't hear. Or maybe she simply refused to acknowledge any of it. Moments later, the manager, Bradley, stepped out from the small office at the back of the kitchen. His vest was still neatly pressed, but sweat beaded on his forehead, his face tight like he'd swallowed ice. He approached Naomi, lowering his voice, but his words were meant for every pair of ears tilted toward them. "Naomi, you have to leave." She looked at him, unsurprised. "I have no choice," he went on, avoiding her gaze. "Someone like you can't work in a place like this." The words dropped light as a napkin sliding off a tablecloth, but they cut deep, slicing invisible wounds. Naomi didn't flinch. She only nodded slowly, as if she had expected this all along. Her hand tightened slightly around her phone. Bradley lingered for a moment, then stepped back. He didn't dare meet her eyes, as though he knew exactly what was in them, but lacked the courage to face it. Naomi sat on the wooden chair by the walk-in freezer. Her back was straight, her chin lifted. She opened her phone, typed quickly, hit send, then locked the screen. Silence wrapped around her like a thin, suffocating film. No one approached. No one spoke. She sat there like a blemish on the spotless tile floor, seen by everyone, avoided by all. Out in the dining hall, Morton Kessler was still holding court. He raised his glass of red wine, smirking, his voice rising over the soft piano music. "Haha. You see? I told you. These people think they belong here? Please." One of his Japanese guests smiled stiffly. Morton didn't notice. "At my Miami location," he continued, "I had 3 fired. One of them, black, thought she could read a French menu. I told the manager, either she goes or your restaurant goes. Simple." The table laughed. One of his investors nodded approvingly. "You really have high standards, Mr. Kessler." Morton grinned, savoring the moment. Power was the finest wine, and he believed no one would ever dare challenge him after all. He was the man who poured the money that built this culinary empire. Back in the kitchen, Naomi remained motionless. Her white uniform was creased, dampened by the heat of the room, but she didn't seem to care. Outside, rain began to fall, light but steady, streaking the fogged glass of the dishwashing room. When her phone vibrated again, Naomi glanced at the screen, stood up and slipped it into her pocket. She walked toward the back door. No farewell. No one stopped her. No one even looked her way. She pushed the heavy door open and stepped into the narrow alley behind the restaurant. The lingering scent of grilled meat clung to the damp night air, mingling with the metallic, earthy smell of early rain. Her white uniform darkened quickly under the drizzle, her curls plastered to her neck. But Naomi didn't raise her hood. She didn't hurry. She walked slowly, each step steady, unhurried, like a jazz rhythm that needed no applause. Her back straight, her eyes forward, and for anyone sharp enough to see it, there was something fermenting in that quiet stride. Not shame, not defeat, something stronger, rising. The rain fell gently, rhythmically, like the start of a cleansing, not of her skin, but of truth itself. The grand hall of La Belle Couronne seemed to have slipped back into its usual rhythm. Laughter rippled through the air again, glasses clinked in a delicate symphony, and the soft hum of classical strings floated lazily from the stage, as if the storm from earlier had never happened. Morton Kessler, smug as ever, was still holding court, weaving his long-winded stories about investment conquests to his dinner guests. He laughed loud, drank deep, and relished his own voice. Humiliating someone was, for him, merely an appetizer to the evening. But just as dessert was served, the lights flickered, just once. Then a voice came through the restaurant's PA system, crisp and unshaken. "Ladies and gentlemen, service will pause for 3 minutes for an official announcement from management." Every waiter froze mid-step. A fork struck porcelain with a soft metallic ting, as someone stopped cutting their mousse. Murmurs rose, confusion spreading across the room. Morton frowned. What the hell is this? The double doors at the back of the hall swung open. Naomi Carter walked in, not as the waitress humiliated earlier, but as someone else entirely. Gone was the stiff white shirt and apron. She now wore a tailored ivory suit, sharp shoulders under a silk gray trench that shimmered faintly under the chandeliers. Like armor, her curls were pulled neatly into a high bun, exposing high cheekbones and those unwavering dark eyes. Her bronze heels clicked against the marble floor, measured and calm, each step claiming the space that had rejected her hours before. She stopped at the center of the hall, in full view of every table, and spoke. "Good evening." Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried, sliding through every corner, threading through every crystal glass, settling in the ears of those who had sneered at her before. "My name is Naomi Carter, founder and legal owner of the entire La Belle restaurant chain." Silence spread like a cold draft. Someone dropped a fork. Heads turned sharply, and at the center table, Morton Kessler froze mid-sip, the wine glass trembling in his hand. Naomi took a single step closer. "I apologize for interrupting your meal, but some truths need to be spoken right here, in front of those who believe wealth grants them the right to treat people like objects." Her eyes shifted, locking on the VVIP table. "Mr. Kessler," she said clearly, her tone polite but edged with steel. "Today, you humiliated me in front of this entire dining hall. What you didn't know was that I worked this evening for one reason only, to see firsthand what I had been told, to witness it myself, not just collect reports." Morton's face flushed crimson, then paled. He sat up straight, almost lunging forward. "This is outrageous. What kind of nonsense?" Naomi didn't flinch. Her voice cut through his like a blade. "For 2 years, since you became an investor in La Belle, you've interfered with staff management, threatened employees, and worse, sexually harassed female staff members." A hushed gasp escaped from a group of women seated nearby. Morton shot up from his chair. "You're lying. I'm the primary investor. You don't get to—" "Sit down, Mr. Kessler," Naomi interrupted, her voice still calm, but sharp enough to draw blood. This is no longer your stage. She turned her gaze to the room, then to the staff standing frozen along the edges. The servers, the bartenders, the dishwashers. Some of you may remember the name Brenda Johnson. The mention hung in the air like smoke. Someone looked down. No one spoke. Brenda was one of our best servers at the flagship location. One night, while serving Mr. Kessler, she was groped right in the middle of dinner in front of witnesses. When she resisted, Naomi's breath was steady, but her words pressed down like weights. She was accused of seducing a client and causing a scene. She was quietly forced to resign. No one defended her. No one spoke up, because everyone was afraid of Mr. Kessler. A glass clinked too hard against a table. Chewing had stopped altogether. Tonight, Naomi continued, scanning the room. I'm not standing here for myself. I'm standing here for Brenda. For every person crushed by the so-called power of investment and wealth. She turned toward the staff, the ones who had been silent, the ones who had watched. I don't blame you for staying quiet. I know what silence costs. Your job, your livelihood, your dignity. But silence won't save anyone. It only ensures there will be another Brenda, another me, and another after that. Her eyes returned to Morton, now slouched back into his chair, fists clenched, his earlier bravado slipping away. That's why, Naomi declared, each word firm as a hammer strike. I, Naomi Carter, as the founder and sole owner of LaBelle, hereby remove Morton Kessler from all investment rights within this restaurant chain. The room went deathly still. She didn't look away. Your actions violate the ethical conduct clause you signed. Every incident of harassment and abuse of authority will be reported to the Service Industry Ethics Board and the proper legal authority. Morton shot up again, sputtering. You don't have the authority. Naomi calmly gestured to the assistant who had entered behind her. The woman handed Naomi a sleek tablet. Naomi turned the screen toward the room. There it was. Morton's signature. The original contract. A clause highlighted in bold. Severe ethical misconduct will result in immediate termination of all investment privileges. Morton's breath caught as if the air had been sucked from his lungs. Naomi set the tablet down on a nearby table, her voice steady for the final blow. This is no longer a restaurant where you can parade your arrogance. This is now a place where those you look down on are finally standing up. The fallout was faster than anyone could have imagined. Within 24 hours of Naomi Carter's stunning speech at La Belle Couronne, a 2-minute video Morton Kessler screaming at a black waitress, only to be exposed as a bully by the doughy woman he had humiliated, was everywhere. The first viral headline read, "From servant to owner, Naomi Carter's slap without touching him." 12 hours later, it had been shared 7 million times. Morning talk shows replayed her calm, razor-sharp words, comparing her poise to political leaders in moments of crisis. Newspapers dug deeper. Emails leaked from Kessler Holdings revealed Morton's history of forcing Bach employees out for absurd reasons. Victims began to speak. A former manager from Atlanta said, "He told me to hire only white servers because light skin reflects better under wine glasses." A black employee in Houston recalled, "I was threatened with termination for wearing my natural afro. The manager said I looked like I just crawled out of the slums." The dam burst. Within 10 days, 3 major partners pulled out of Kessler Holdings. An $80 million funding deal collapsed. NASDAQ placed the company under ethical review. Stock prices plummeted 43% in 3 weeks, and on day 27, Morton Kessler, the man who once sat smugly in that velvet chair with a mint cigar, filed for personal bankruptcy. The media called it the most humiliating fall of a man who thought he was untouchable. Naomi, however, wasn't celebrating. She appeared on television in a simple ivory blazer, no makeup, standing next to a woman once erased from the industry. Brenda Johnson. Brenda, the former waitress forced to resign after resisting Morton's groping, stood in a plain olive green dress, holding Naomi's hand. She didn't speak, but the tight grip said enough. Naomi looked directly into the camera. "I'm sorry. Sorry I didn't protect them sooner. Sorry we made women like Brenda leave as if they were the ones who did wrong. They weren't wrong. We were, because we didn't see them. Behind her stood 6 former employees who had been pressured out by Morton. One of them quietly wiped away tears. Naomi continued, "We, Brenda, myself, and everyone who was silenced, are starting a foundation called Brave Roots. It will offer legal, financial, and emotional support to people of color facing workplace discrimination. Not just in restaurants, everywhere." The studio audience rose to their feet in applause. Newspapers headlined, "Naomi didn't retaliate, she rebuilt." Far from collapsing, La Belle Couronne thrived. Reservations skyrocketed 60% in 2 months. People traveled not just for the truffle dishes but, as one reviewer put it, to dine where justice finally won. Naomi refused personal interviews. She still visited one branch every week, inspecting kitchens and talking with staff. This time, no one avoided her gaze. Brenda was appointed director of cultural training for the entire chain. All staff uniforms were updated with a simple embroidered phrase, "Respect has no color." 1 month later, at a New Jersey branch, a little black girl in a faded floral dress shyly approached Naomi. Her mother nudged her forward. The girl handed Naomi a crumpled note, scrawled in pencil. "Miss Naomi, I want to be like you. Not scared. Doing the right thing." Naomi knelt, gently tucking a curl behind the girl's ear, smiling softly. "You don't need to be like me. Just remember, you have the right to do what's right, no matter what they call you." At her final press conference, a reporter asked, "You were once a waitress humiliated in front of everyone, yet you turned out to be the owner who changed the system. What made that possible?" Naomi's smile was small, but steady. "I didn't change. I'm still that waitress who was sent to the back door in the rain. I just refused to stay silent. Sometimes all it takes is one person who doesn't bow their head to change an entire system." That evening, Naomi left the company's headquarters. Her reflection in the glass doors merged with a new slogan etched above. She wasn't just a black waitress. She cleaned out a rotten system with the same hands people once looked down on. Her heels clicked against the marble floor, rhythmic and proud, carrying her forward. She didn't look back. Not every victory requires power or wealth. Sometimes, all it takes is one person brave enough to walk through humiliation, hold on to dignity, and stand up for what's right, to bring down an empire built on arrogance and injustice. Naomi Carter didn't just reclaim her own honor. She opened a path for thousands whose voices had been silenced. Her story reminds us, truth doesn't need to be shouted to be heard. It only needs to be spoken at the right moment, with eyes that refuse to bow and with hands once looked down upon, now shaping justice.